Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to this latest QGate webinar, where our focus is on unlocking the answer to your software usage challenge. My name is Josh Dhaliwal, and I'm joined on this webinar today by my colleague Jonathan Small. Now, those of you who are QGate clients will most probably already know Jonathan in one of his many guises, which includes project manager. But Jonathan, being a man with many hats, he joins us today in his capacity as e-learning consultant at QGate. Jonathan, do you want to say a quick hello and tell us a little bit about your role?
Hi there. Thank you, Josh. So my background for 20 odd years is teaching and learning. Coming to QGate, it's taken a bit of a turn into my love of e-learning, and with particular focus on not just the usual training side of things, but also on being able to access e-learning in more interesting and enjoyable ways for those users when they come to training in their systems.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Jonathan. We are also joined by my marketing colleague, Yasmin Cooper, who will be keeping an eye on the chat for your questions. Yes, do you also want to say a quick hello?
Hello. I'm marketing executive at QGate. I will be keeping an eye, as Josh said, on the chat. So please feel free to pop any questions or feedback in the chat, and we'll go through them at the end.
Fantastic. It is worthwhile mentioning that this webinar is being recorded, so please don't worry about making notes. We will be making a copy of the video available on our website and our YouTube channel, hopefully by the end of the week, and you'll all be receiving an email notifying you that it is up and available. If you are watching this as a recording and you have any questions, then please feel free to use my contact details that you see on the screen, or Jonathan's, to contact either one of us directly. Now, I notice that most of the names of registrants on this webinar are new to QGate. So for everyone's benefit, QGate is an operational efficiency and CRM consultancy, and we specialize in the use of Dynamics 365 and the Microsoft Power Apps platform to help solve our clients' business problems. We believe that technology should work for you and not the other way around, and we're passionate about helping businesses streamline their processes and improve their customer relationships, as I mentioned, through the power of business process automation and CRM. Our goal is to empower our clients to focus on what they do best, which is running their businesses. Let us worry about the technology. We typically work with business owners, heads of operations, or IT managers in small to medium-sized organizations and businesses. And some of the things that they tell us is that they're either scared of being left behind by digital developments and are unable to scale their businesses with the systems that they have, or they're annoyed at how difficult it is to extract any kind of meaningful data from the business on which to make decisions because it's all locked up in multiple spreadsheets or multiple systems. Or they worry they will lose customers because their processes are too cumbersome and they lack automation and workflows. And we see it as part of our role as a trusted partner to educate, to inform and inspire our clients on the latest technologies available, and hence us talking about user adoption today. And part of our role is to demystify and decipher many of the new developments, because I'm sure you're all very busy, and to help you understand the practicalities of how the new tech can impact your businesses. Now, before I go on, I want to get your thoughts. Let us know in the chat box if you face any user challenges amongst your teams, and what have you done to address those thus far. If you let Yaz know, I will hopefully get round to reading some of those towards the end of this call. If you're not already familiar with Microsoft Teams, you'll find the chat and QA icons on the main toolbar. So why are we talking about user adoption today? Now, I've come across several what I would call startling statistics, which should make anyone question why they would want to undertake a digital transformation or new software implementation project. And these come from more than one source, and anywhere between 2/3 and 80% of all software projects fail to deliver on expectations. And some, according to McKinsey, fail so spectacularly that they risk the very existences of the businesses trying to implement them. So one of the things I want to look at first is, why do software implementations fail? And I'm going to kick off with poor planning. One of the most common reasons why software projects fail is due to a lack of goals and planning. And without a plan, it's hard to know exactly what and when something needs to be done. And this can lead to project delays and ultimately failure. And to avoid this fate, always take the time to plan your software project thoroughly before starting work. The failure to plan can damage the organization's effectiveness and even result in its total collapse, as I mentioned. Now, however, planning doesn't end with a business plan. Instead, it should be included in the routine of managing your software implementation. What's more, planning should include many other elements like long and short-term goals, specific deadlines, measurable forecasts, particularly for where the organization will be in a 2 or 3 or 5 year plan. And we're going to tell you more about some of these things later. So if no plan is in place, there will be, invariably, there is no mission statement or vision. And it's easy to lose sight of the objective and goals of your project, especially if you're embarking on a journey which is going to take several months, if not years. Now, one of the tools available on the QGate website is our CRM checklist, where we ask you to list the objectives and the main reasons why you're embarking on this journey, so you don't lose sight of it in the ongoing project haze. Okay. A poorly executed project can also often lack of leadership, which can manifest itself in a number of ways. Firstly, the project manager may be unable to provide clear and concise direction to team members and users, resulting in confusion and inaction. Secondly, the leader may not be able to enforce discipline and adherence to a new established procedures within the team, often leading to chaos and wasted effort. And finally, a lack of leadership can also lead to missed opportunities and unforeseen problems that could have been avoided earlier, and if proper moves had been taken from the outset. By understanding how leadership impacts a software project's success or failure, managers can put in place measures that will ensure their projects are on track. Form of communication, another reason why software projects fail. When teams don't share information or coordinate their efforts, they can't produce a high quality project plan. Also, employees are most productive when they understand the bigger picture, so their productivity can decline without a precise project introduction. And to avoid this problem, teams need to establish clear communication channels and make sure everyone knows what needs to be done. They also need to work closely together to resolve conflicts and ensure all stakeholders are on the same page. As a result, project managers can ensure that their software projects succeed by involving all team members and stakeholders very early on in the process. Lack of resources. Another reason why software project processes go wrong is the inadequate resources to complete the project. And improper placement can also lead to problems such as schedule delays, cost overruns, and quality defects. This is obviously another important one. Without buy-in for change management, the resistance level of team members and employees rises. Often the rate of project success can be directly linked to the presence of effective change management practices. Support for change management across the businesses is more likely to be achieved when the benefits of the activity can be clearly identified and contextualized for the team or departments being addressed. Now, in the past 10 years, I've been involved in hundreds of software implementations, and a number of those fail because it hasn't been articulated clearly to everyone involved in not only implementing a solution, but people using it on a day-to-day as to how it's going to benefit them. When defined as a simple list of activities or procedures that will be implemented, change management can be viewed simply as increased activity that will complicate the standard of daily outputs. So outlining each project objective and calculating the role that employee adoption plays in the achievement of each is the first step in specifying the people-dependent portion and ROI and benefits. You'll notice that there are obviously several crossovers with the things that we've talked about above. The last one I want to talk about here is user adoption. Okay, and because even a successfully implemented on budget, on time project can fail if your users don't adopt the new platform or adopt new habits. And change management is important, but so is ensuring your users not only know the why, but how. And businesses so often kind of look at onboarding and training as a checkbox exercise, often delivered in a workshop or classroom type environment before or shortly after a new software has been introduced. And I guess the problem there is human retention. My colleague Jonathan has worked for a number of years in teaching, so may have some thoughts on this, having worked both with children and with prisoners. From what I've seen and read, we apparently only retain 10% of the information we hear and 20% of what we read. You have anything to add to that, Jonathan?
Yeah, very much so. Not only that, from experience, is the retention when you go through training exercises can be impacted by how much attention people pay. And I think it's sort of quoted that 7 minutes is generally the amount of time that people can pay attention for without losing track. So sort of on average, people will lose track of what you're saying quite quickly. So there has to be that element of interest and sparking interest and changing from one piece of information to another with some regularity to ensure that people start keeping that interest and retaining the information you're giving to them. So so it is a very difficult thing when it comes to training in order to make sure that people retain and take on that information.
That's given me some food for thought. Maybe our future webinars should only be 7 minutes long in that case. Okay, moving on. In order to effectively understand user adoption, it's useful to look at something called the product adoption curve. What the product adoption curve shows is how a product is adopted through multiple segments of a user group. The 5 stages of the product adoption curve are innovators and early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. And with quite a chasm between the early adopters and what we kind of call the early or the later or the early majority in this case. And obviously the early successes of your implementation are likely to be amongst the tech enthusiasts and the users most vocal about the need for change and your visionaries, the change agents. So both of these segments actually represent the minority of your user group. I want to share something else with you here, which is interesting, which is based on some research that was done back in 1969, way before I imagine any of us on this call were born, marginally so in my case. This was put together by a Swiss-American psychiatrist called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and kind of addresses people's responses to change, and that this is something that's helped organizations be able to predict people's reactions to change and provide adequate and timely support to help people as they transition through that change. And obviously this has applications for businesses and organizations implementing change and new software. And what we see from this is that the first stage is shock or denial, and an individual puts forward their defense mechanisms to deflect the actual occurrence of the change. So there is a steep decline in employee productivity at this stage. And it's only human to cling on to past processes or individual expectations, leading to a disconnect with the new reality. We then have kind of stages which involve anger, and obviously this can have negative impacts as the project could potentially spiral out of control, resulting in significant change failures. And this is obviously kind of the stage at which most kind of implementations fail. But really kind of once an individual crosses the anger stage of the change curve, they attempt to salvage the situation by exploring the path of least objection. They may try to negotiate and find compromise. Okay, and again, there may be signs of loss of morale, regret, and demotivation through this. And it's really only in the final stage of the change curve individuals come to change with the new reality or the change, and their innovations are lowered. They accept the change and start to explore new favorable opportunities that are a result of the change. Once employees accept the change, you must obviously cement the change into your organizational culture to avoid reverting to old habits. And looking at this curve, which my colleague Jonathan will already be familiar with from his forays into change management, it's often I think the frustration stage that businesses will seek out help. Would you agree with that, Jonathan?
I certainly would agree with that. Yes, it tends to be where people get frustrated, and a lot of that frustration, is overcomable with certain measures put in place. So yeah, we do tend to find that.
Excellent. And I think we kind of know that a change invokes obviously several emotions and may cause discomfort. However, when kind of employees begin behavior modification and begin to accept the change, organizations must recognize the initial drivers of change and also reward them. Once you have achieve a critical milestone, obviously be sure to celebrate those wins. I know, again, from having worked in software implementations for a number of years, the approach taken by many businesses when introducing change is to use the stick approach, whereas it can be more beneficial and motivating to highlight the positives and use those as the basis for greater change. Because unless you're sharing those messages as to why we're asking people to adopt new habits, it can be lost. Okay. So what are the pain points? To properly understand, obviously, the consequences of user adoption failure, I want to look at some of the resulting pain points for businesses and organizations. We look, there's obvious reduced productivity and efficiency, which results in reduced ROI, not only in the business, but also from the project. Employee morale may be affected, and employees may start to question their suitability to the change and whether they still want to continue to work in this environment. The scalability of the business may be affected, especially if you're implementing a new piece of software to increase efficiency and obviously to ensure that you profitably grow your business. And what I mean by regression here is we're talking about people going back to the way they were working or finding new ways of working which aren't compatible with the goals of the business. And there's obviously lots of examples of this. I've talked to businesses where, despite them implementing, for example, a new CRM, users have chosen to go back to using Excel spreadsheets. Now, in some cases, the new way of working was just either too difficult or and the benefits not explained, and in others there was a I don't know how and I don't know why element to that as well. Okay, it's at this point I want to bring back my colleague Jonathan to talk about one of the solutions that we talk to clients regularly about. And as I mentioned earlier, Jonathan is our e-learning consultant. One of his jobs, both with clients whose Microsoft Dynamics CRM systems we build at QGate, and also clients who come to us with the issue of user adoption. And they may either be using another Microsoft partner for their Dynamics CRM, or they may be using another piece of software. Today, Jonathan, I think you're going to be talking us through the ClickLearn platform. And for those of you not already familiar with ClickLearn, they are a QGate partner and have been for a number of years, and have a learning and onboarding training platform that not only works with Dynamics 365, but also Business Central, previously known as Navision, Salesforce, SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft's Power Platform. Over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, Josh. In fact, just taking that one step further, ClickLearn worked with most Windows and web-based platforms, well beyond those that you've already mentioned. It is a very powerful tool. What I'm going to show now only very, very briefly scratches the surface, but it will give you an idea of some of its capabilities. So if I just share my screen out and take control, I can give you some idea of what it does and how it works. As a starting point, then we're going to be looking at a ClickLearn learning platform. These platforms are very, very clear and very, very easy to navigate. They are not a learning management system, I need to make that clear, but they are or ClickLearn in itself is an incredible content creation tool, which allows users to explore a system and have support there to do that well beyond any initial training. You can see on here it is searchable. You can look at your contents on here and navigate to different areas of the platform. You can add information about what is in this platform to a greater or lesser extent, and then you can navigate through by the icons to different learning paths within the platform itself. If we go into, for example, one of the pages within the platform, let's have a look at advanced filters here. You can see you've got a breadcrumb trail, so you know where you are within the system. And what the ClickLearn platform gives you is a very clear set of instructions marked up with hotspots showing where you click on the screen, really nicely defined and cropped screen prints, and then instruction that you can follow in a written context as well. All of this could be very, very simple, such as click here, click through, or you can add to it and give it that contextualization, which is really important for users as well. So not only do they know what they're doing, but usually why they're doing it as well helps. So you can add that business-based information. This is one part of what ClickLearn produces. There is one content creation process for this. And what that content creation process actually gives you is a whole multitude of different outputs. And you hear the term learning styles bandied about quite a lot. Well, actually, this tool approaches that idea of learning styles quite nicely in that it not only gives you this written and visual context for those sorts of learners who deal best with that sort of context. There is also video and narrated versions, which we'll come to in a little bit as well, and practical applications which it produces. And it takes away all the pain as well of all that initial going through, taking screenshots, marking them up, putting it into a document, writing into that document about how you do it, and then having to produce a manual that quite often is the backbone of your system, which is then also liable to change. And change is something else I'll talk about just in a few moments. So there is also this element on here where there is the ability to feedback. Another critical thing when it comes to user adoption is the ability for someone who is working within a system to feel that they can input into change and input ideas. And again, ClickLearn can manage that through a certain amount of analytics that it has in the background as well. So I mentioned about videos. So they are on the right at the top here, a set of outputs that you can also access. We have 3 different types of videos: surface there, a show me, a try me, and a test me. So if we just go into the show me video, and you'll see what this involves.
Accessing advanced filters. The purpose of this guide is to give an overview of how to access advanced filters. Navigate to advanced filters. As part of Microsoft's Wave updates, it was announced that the long-serving Advanced Find, that has supported Dynamics users for many years, was to be retired. A new and more powerful search function has been introduced, which is fully integrated into the wider Microsoft Dynamics experience. When you log into Microsoft Dynamics, you will be taken to your home page. To access the modern advanced find and filters, start by clicking on the search field in the navigation bar. Then select.
Okay, so from there you get an idea of the video. This is a show me video. It will take you through from start to finish, point-to-point mouse movement. And there was a try me and a test me video there as well, which gives less and less help as you go through. You've also got Word, PDF, and PowerPoint documents, which are all downloadable on here. And again, this is all from one single creation process. The very last thing that I will very briefly show is an integration within the system. There is this integration where you can have a user actually access all of that same information directly within their CRM. And this allows you to go point to point, it shows you where to click, what to click on, what information to enter as you go through. And it will take you through from start to finish for any given process that you would like to record within Dynamics or Nav or any other system that you're caring to document. This is only the start. I will say that ClickLearn is about to go supersonic. There is going to be a new pane in there. There was a fire yesterday where they were looking at the new releases coming up. AI chat. There is going to be integrated notifications and a whole host of other very new functionality, which builds on this already fantastic system. And that's it for the moment. I'll pass you back to Josh.
You're on mute, Josh.
Sorry about that. Jonathan, just on the AI chatbot, is that another way to query the system and look for information when you're stuck on doing something?
Yeah, the new AI chatbot that's coming out, it will actually pick up on where you are in the system. It's context sensitive. The help function will pick up at the point you are within a process and guide you from there. Yeah, it's very, very interactive, very, very advanced, and it's all coming very, very soon with and building on the ClickLearn functionality, which is already there.
Fantastic. Sounds very exciting. Okay, so in summary, the benefits of a user adoption or e-learning tool like ClickLearn, I guess, over other forms of onboarding and learning, I guess firstly is that you're learning by seeing and following. And you heard us discuss earlier that we retain only 10% of what we hear and 20% of what we read. Well, that retention jumps to 80% when we see. And this is not only about skilling workers to use the tool, but also building new behaviors by doing. Okay. And obviously using a tool integrated into your software like ClickLearn also means that you're delivering help and assistance at the moment of need and at this step of workflow. And as Jonathan just mentioned there, with the new AI chatbot, it obviously also recognizes where you are in the system. Okay. And obviously what you're doing here is ensuring that people aren't having to step away from the task and having to raise an internal support ticket or go looking for the answer elsewhere, which we know is disruptive and also shifts the workload onto your support team. There also is some measurability of the tool. You can see who's querying the system and looking for how to do something, ensuring compliance goals are met, and where, for example, improvements may need to be made, especially with that feedback element as well. I think at the last count, ClickLearn support translation into something like 45 different languages, and so ensures for global teams that knowledge creation isn't something that has to be replicated country by country. And if you have multiple countries using local language versions of the software, you only have to create the learning steps once and the rest is automatic. Although I understand that translation is a little bit like kind of Google Translate, and you may need to cast an eye over the translation, but that's something that you can do either internally, or as I understand, I think ClickLearn have a support element of that as well?
There's an integrated language specialist third party where you can ask them for a small fee to go over the translation and then upload that translation directly back into the system.
Perfect. And the final thing here is something that I have experience with from previous technologies that I've helped on board, is that you've gone to the huge effort of creating all the training material, but such as technology and systems forever evolving, that a small tweak to a system may mean having to redo all of the training material, but obviously that's not the case with ClickLearn. I think one of the frequently mentioned statistics by ClickLearn is an 80% reduction in the cost of producing and reproducing training material. Okay. This is where I want to bring in my colleague Yaz, who's obviously been keeping an eye out for your questions. Yaz, before we go into any questions, any comments or feedback from our registrants that you think is worth sharing?
No, we do have a question, however, okay. And that question is, does ClickLearn integrate with an LMS?
That's going to be one for you, Jonathan.
Yes, it does. It has the ability to produce SCORM files, and those integrate with an LMS. So yes, you can do that quite happily.
Great, thank you.
I've got one other quick question, which I've just picked up, which might not be as straightforward, Jonathan. So I don't know if this one's going to be one that I have to answer. I've got a question here about how much does it cost? Now, I know from ClickLearn projects that I've seen costed, there are obviously multiple components, which include the licensing of the tool, creation of the content licenses, and also training in how to use the tool, which I can assure you is very important. And I know that one of the other factors is whether you're the end client or you're the IT partner putting the content material for the end user. But I'm happy to take that question offline and follow up directly with the inquirer, because we've got some models that we know work. Perfect. Quickly, Yaz, any other questions or feedback?
No, that's everything.
Perfect. Okay. Looks like we're just on time. If anyone would like a more detailed demo of ClickLearn or want to discuss your user adoption issues, I guess we've only kind of talked about ClickLearn so far during this webinar. Your issue may be unrelated to training and actually to do with process flow. But in any case, if it's something that you'd like to discuss, I will be sharing my contact details again before the end of the call. Alternatively, you can reach out to me or any of the team here on info@qgate.co.uk. Before I go, just a quick reminder that we do have a page on the QGate website where you'll be able to see the recording of this webinar and many others, as well as access to our blog library. And you can see some of the titles of our recent webinars on the screen in front of you. And just before I go, we will, as I mentioned earlier, be sharing a copy of the video recording, so please keep an eye out for that email, which includes the link. Anyone watching this as a live session or recording and you'd like to discuss ClickLearn or your user adoption challenges, then please feel free to reach out to the team here on the email address for me that you see on the screen. Thank you to my colleague Jonathan for his contribution, and Yas for keeping an eye on your chat and questions. And thank you for joining us here today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes. Ta-ta.